The pattern that we find ourselves in constantly, I feel like, is getting too excited about solutions and not problems. That was the case with me at Facebook, at Instagram, Figma, now the browser company.
Cemre Güngor, who has operated at the edge of almost every major product environment you can think of. He's helped build design-led social products as a founder, steer the global sharing and creative experiences at Facebook and Instagram, shaped core product systems and AI-powered workflows at Figma, and now drives How Dear at the browser company. Have you changed as a product manager how you bring that context into like all of the different AI tools that you use?
Context is all over the place and constantly updating and changing and refreshing. One thing that I found trying to integrate more AI into my day-to-day workflow is the biggest pain point is actually context. It's not writing a prompt.
What does the browser become responsible for in an AI world that apps used to own? And how does that change?
It turns out that is the key value of having an AI browser. It's not necessarily having less friction to run these simple question-answer queries with AI. It's being able to bring in your context.
In this world, currently, you don't always know what good looks like. You kind of have to ship something first to then figure out what actually good looks like. Is that true? Is this something you experience? And what does that look like if you have an example?
Yeah.
Welcome back to Product in Practice, where we break down the behaviors, decisions, and mental models behind great product work. Today's guest is someone who has operated at the edge of almost every major product environment you can think of. He's helped build design-led social products as a founder, steer the global sharing and creative experiences at Facebook and Instagram, shaped core product systems and AI-powered workflows at Figma, and now drives How Dear at the browser company reimagines the browser as the full-on command center. His name is Cemre Güngor, and what makes him fascinating isn't the sequence of companies, but what he's observed across them. The recurring mistakes, the quiet patterns, and the practices that scale from tiny teams to billion user surfaces. Cemre, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Axel.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. Excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this conversation, and also when I let the Atlassian team know that we were going to sit down and have this conversation, my Slack DMs basically blew up. People had like a million questions. So I've baked in some of these questions here, and some of them are really interesting from the team. Today, we are going to dive deep in three areas where I think your experience really reveals clear patterns. The first one is how PM craft must evolve when, the product surface changes. We're going to talk about how the product surface is changing with AI and LLMs. What PMs constantly get wrong, specifically as the world around us evolves. What distinguishes durable AI features from demo candy, like you like to call it. And finally, how all of this shows up in Dear, the browser as a new intent layer. Across all of these environments, what would you say is one pattern about good product teams that has remained surprisingly stable?
This is going to be a very boring answer, I feel like, but starting with the end in mind, the pattern that we find ourselves in constantly, I feel like, is getting too excited about solutions and not problems. And that was the case with me at Facebook, at Instagram, at Figma, now at the browser company. Obviously, I think now that it's become so much easier to prototype stuff, it is more feasible to start with a solution and get excited about it. I don't think we should shut that out. But in order to get to a good result that actually is valuable for people, I think even when you start with a solution, it's important to work backwards into what is the problem we're solving for, what's the opportunity for people. So yeah, boring answer, but I feel like that's the one aspect that hasn't changed.
I think it's really important, especially, I see these things as pendulum swings. Right now with AI, we see my LinkedIn feed is prototypes, AI prototyping everywhere, which I think is great because product managers now have agency to,
yes,
go from an idea to actually show what they have in mind and how they could solve this problem a user just, surfaced on a call, for example. So in that sense, I think it's really powerful. But I don't think your answer is boring. I think people need to hear that while all of this stuff is changing at an incredible pace, we almost need to focus even more now on what is the differentiator. And the differentiator is, how do you solve customer problems now that tools have been incredibly democratized across all roles in the product teams, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is also, even when you have a prototype, the way to evaluate if that prototype is good is it solving the problem, right? So if you haven't aligned on what problem you're solving for, it's difficult to evaluate if you're like moving in the correct direction.
That makes sense. One of the things that I think is fascinating, just looking at your career and some of the companies you've worked at, is some of these companies have been, quite defining in the way they've changed how we build products or how we approach building products, right? So you've worked on social platforms, creative tools, AI native workflows now, browser as the operating system. When the surface changes, and by the surface I mean the product and the environment around the product, the PM craft has to change with it, right? So the way we build product, back when you were at Instagram was, a specific way, right? And then you went to Figma, and I guess the way we built product back then also probably changed. And now that you're at the browser company, you probably have a different approach. What's one core product management behavior that stopped working as you moved across from like each of these companies?
One thing that I noticed when I went from Instagram to Figma, and that was actually a really huge adjustment for me at Instagram, because when I went to Figma from Instagram, I thought, well, I've been working on creative tools my whole life at Facebook and Instagram. The thing that I was responsible for in Instagram was the camera and all the creative tools to like create content. That's a canvas. Figma is a canvas. In my mind, there may have been some parallels there, but like that actually was not the case at all. At Instagram, when you're building for 1 billion people, there's a lot of valid critique for like metric-driven influenced product development, but I think when you're building for 1 billion people, I don't know, and when you have like a massive team, I don't know if there is another way to make decisions at scale.
Yeah,
and
you need a robust framework.
Yeah, and at Instagram, I think it was, in hindsight, there's a lot of very challenging things about working on a consumer product. I don't want to undersell that at all, but the funnels are actually pretty simple. You come to the app to post some media, you pick it, you take a photo or pick it from your gallery, then you make some edits, then you post, and then we can just see your success like throughout this, or you're like coming and consuming content, how deep you go, etc. When I went to Figma, I realized it's a lot more difficult to assess if someone is having like a successful experience in the Figma canvas, because like not every time you come to Figma, you're starting from scratch and making an edit and sending it. Like it's not a funnel like that. Whether you're adding more frames and rectangles or using more auto layout does not predict if you're being like a more productive designer.
The measure of whether you're achieving the outcome you're here for isn't quite the same. Or isn't obvious.
Yeah, it's not obvious at all. Yeah, and actually it's pretty similar in the browser as well. It's even a more extreme version of Figma, where like Figma ultimately is still a design tool, and you're coming there to create like interface designs. The browser has so many different use cases and such a big audience trying to do all sorts of things, and it's we can measure success at a very high level. Like, did you come back? Are you your default browser? Are you coming back every day? And we can measure success at a more micro level, like when you use this feature, did you get a good result? But anything in between is also still pretty hard to assess, like whether you're opening more tabs or not, or,
And how is that an indicator that you're doing a good job?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
So the thing that I found is you need to start leaning a lot more on your understanding of the user and judgment, because these workflows are so complex and varied that you're not going to be able to look at like a metric funnel and say this is good. Like you need to make that assessment. Like the team needs to make that assessment themselves.
It's really interesting across your career. It sounds like even though now you are a DIA and the browser company, and the focus is on building this like browser for the AI era, it sounds like you had prior experience with AI, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And I'm really interested in how did you actually think intentionally about building a skill set that you are now finding is incredibly helpful at the browser company? Or did things kind of like happen organically?
Things just happened organically. I was the PM for AI, the first PM for AI at Figma, and shipped a lot of the features that released in 2024 around, some AI-based editing tools. This often requested, can you please name my layers for me, and like image generation integrations and things of that nature. But at the time, generating designs, generating prototypes was definitely not as robust. Like that's something that Figma launched this past year. Mm-hmm. We weren't quite there yet. So those features were still pretty limited and tactical. Mm-hmm. So even though that gave me a sense of what it's like to build features that lean on LLMs, our layer renaming feature still in its scope and the utility it has is like a very well-defined thing. To go from that to, when I came to the browser company, the very first onboarding task and challenge that I had was we had a routing system. When you type something into the command bar, we need to decide, do we take you to Google? Do we give you an assistant answer? At the time, the team had gone very maximalist on this. It was actually very magical when it worked. It would take you to like a Google Maps search result or YouTube video. It was like a very magical experience. It was really slow. But anyway, it was a much more open-ended problem space. And when your surface area is like anything that someone might type into a command bar in the browser, it's a lot more difficult to make decisions about like what use cases are we optimizing for, what does success look like, etc. So no, it was a lot of learning by doing.
That's great. And what would you say is the skill that you use now day in, day out that would make or break you being able to be in this role today at the browser company? Is it, a lot of people right now talk about evals. A lot of people talk about, their ability to really quickly communicate their strategy to, the team that's going to actually build the product in visual terms. And, in that there's AI prototyping. What type of skills you find are kind of like helping you be successful at this role?
An interesting setup that we have at the browser company is I'm like currently the sole product manager of a company that's almost 100 people. But we have a lot of very talented engineering leaders that support the different parts of the company that we call pods. So a lot of my work is basically through them. And something that I find very, very helpful, especially because we're building AI features, is there's a lot of value in learning through shipping. These non-deterministic features are much harder to assess ahead of time. Have we hit the quality bar that we want to hit? Because sometimes, the usage patterns that we have internally may not even express what's going to happen externally.
Yeah.
Or internally, we get actually a lot of conflicting feedback. Some people, we actually had this happen. We were iterating on our main assistant response. Some people want very long, rich responses with a lot of media. Some people want very short responses. Someone just needs to make a call.
Yeah.
These things I find are a lot easier to work through if you've shipped a version of it first, and then you can see how something is used in production. Something that I find doing very often with the teams that I'm supporting is giving them a second opinion or perspective on like what's the smallest possible thing that we can get out. Again, this feels like kind of a boring answer. I feel like that hasn't changed between building product like 5-10 years ago and now. But in some ways, I think it's actually even more important now because you can like really spin your wheels, like having evals and optimizing your prompt and whatever for like months and months and months, and then find out that you were actually solving the wrong problem.
You're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah, or you were solving it in a way that does not align with how people actually want to use your product. So I think it's even more important now to get things out first and then try to learn in production what's resonating and then kind of like tighten things and iterate on like just having an iterative approach. I think is more important now.
When I think about Dia and how it is very AI forward and AI centric, like a lot of it is like just infused with, at its core, it's just a lot of AI. Do you think technically you had to up level, or what does that look like?
The whole company had to. Like our whole company has actually transformed. When I joined in September of 24, we had just started prototyping Arc Search. So we have a mobile app that basically like browses and gives you search results. So that existed. But in hindsight, the complexity of that product is still orders of magnitude less than Dia. But we didn't really have a ton of experience as a company building AI products. So we had to reimagine our processes. The whole company had to upskill and like learn new things.
And that was learning by doing?
Yeah, it was a lot of learning by doing.
Okay.
Like we have, the other thing is also, it's not like these technologies are so new. So even the people that come with experience have just a little more.
It's all relative.
Yeah, it's all very relative. Yeah. The whole way we build product has changed. Oftentimes, like when you think of like pre-AI product development, when an engineer, when we have a problem to solve and a design, an engineer implements it, if it works for them, usually it's going to work for everyone else. And then we dock for them, we can ship it and it's done. Whereas with these LLM-based features, they're so non-deterministic. There's so many different use cases that it's inconceivable to me that you would write your system prompt, and that's the thing that you ship with. It just takes a lot of iteration internally and externally. But yeah, in terms of upskilling, one thing that actually we've done recently is when I joined, we had split the engineering team in like product engineers and AI engineers. But then over time, we found out that, well, everyone is actually doing AI engineering in some way. So we are actually just a single engineering team now, and almost everyone is doing a little bit of both. But we had to upskill in terms of writing, system prompts. It is not easy. Like, it's easy to go to ChatGPT or like some other AI assistant and then ask for something. And if you don't like what you get, ask something else.
Yeah.
But then writing this system prompt that's going to accommodate all the different use cases that everyone wants and, format the result in a way that's going to be acceptable for everyone is really hard. That's something that we had to learn. Funnily enough, the person that's leading our prompt engineering team is not an engineer. He actually was in our ops team. Jonathan, incredibly talented person. And it turned out he was the best prompt writer in the company. So now he's built like a prompt engineering team. But that's one aspect we had to learn. In order to make progress on these prompts, obviously you need to have a data set and evals so that you can like hill climb on quality. Otherwise, you're kind of like flying blind. We had to learn that. Yeah, a lot of upskilling through the whole company, I'd say.
One of the things I think people recognize instantly when they're using products from the browser company, I'm an early user of Arc, like many people at Atlassian, is the quality of the experience and the thoughtfulness behind the design of the products, right? I see this in Arc, I see this in Dia. One of the questions a lot of people have is like, how do you, it almost feels like there is a level of intentionality around, I think Josh talks about this idea of building for feelings. Like, how do you go about that? Like, it seems very principled from the outside. How does this materialize? Like, is this actually part of the principles, or do you have operating principles? Is it just like hiring a specific type of person?
Oh, for sure. If you're curious about the values of the company, we actually have an essay called Notes on Road Trips on our website. So this is one of them. Like, making people feel something is an important company value. So I'd say this comes up in our hiring process as well. Like, when we talk to candidates, like every company, we're evaluating their fit for different values. So that's definitely part of it as well. I would say this is something that we are able to do because we have a small and very senior team, and our engineering team is incredibly producty. Like, when I worked at Instagram, I felt like I worked with product-minded engineers. At Figma, I was like, whoa, actually, these engineers are way more producty. And at browser companies, just even another scale. Many engineers that work at the browser company, I'm pretty sure could work as designers if they wanted to in other companies. But I think it's a function of being small and being able to hire very, very selectively. I am not sure if there is some formula or process that would scale this to a much larger team.
So it's like an affinity for what good design is and like lovable experiences, basically.
Yeah, and a lot of people are joining the browser company because they do want to, like, they care at some level, and it is important to them that their work represents their values and they want to be proud of their work. So I think that's how, I think that's a big part of how we achieve this. Obviously, this also is a reflection of the decisions that we make at a leadership level when there are trade-offs to make. Which route are we taking?
Yeah. A lot of AI features, when you think about them and when you see them, they look magical on stage. Like, I cannot tell you the number of demos I've seen recently where I look at the demo and I'm like, wow. And you've built AI at Figma and now at the browser company, you've seen what actually works in a, daily workflow of, let's say, a product manager, for instance. What's the single most important test you run before committing an AI feature? Basically, the test that tells you that this feature has actually changed how somebody is going to work, especially as we think about collaboration in the AI era.
Yeah, I have another boring answer for this, Axel, which is, are we actually using it ourselves? I think is the single best predictor.
Inside the company.
Inside the company, yeah, because we also have had a lot of features that we are toying with that when the initial demo was posted to Slack, we're like, whoa, this is so cool. And then, it's in dogfooding for a couple of weeks. And then we're like, oh, actually, people tried it. And they're like, the fact that someone is coming back to a feature and using it over and over is a very concrete demonstration of value. Like, ultimately, we want to create valuable things, and yeah, the best assessment of it is like, are people internally relying on it and using it? We've had a lot of things that we thought were really cool that we pivoted a whole feature right now where like in the initial release, we all got the result. We're like, whoa, this is incredible. We were so impressed. But then we're like, we're not clicking on it. Like we all thought this was fascinating and very cool, but we're actually not using it. And we assessed that, and then we're like now pivoting the feature into something that we're going to use.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding, like they say.
For sure. And it's like, I find it so frustrating, honestly, that we keep seeing these AI announcements on stage and on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know, like there's an incredible new Gemini model. And then I go to Google Docs with a meeting summary and be like, hey, like what is the takeaway from this meeting? And I get this bad answer.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a function of these boundaries between teams. But yeah, I think the most important thing is, are people that are using your product getting value out of this? The demo is like a moment in time, but the value is going to be something that's like ongoing.
Yeah, you're building for an infinite game, basically. One thing that I'm really curious about is the way we are building products is evolving like very rapidly, right? So I can think about an obvious materialization of this is like how a product manager today can go from idea to prototype in minutes, right? When you're working on an AI-first system, like with Dia, for example, what are the ways building the product has changed? I'm thinking about, you talked about system prompts. We talked about evals earlier. We talked about models, like the rate at which models are evolving and what they allow you to do is quite impressive. As a product leader, how do you factor this in your thinking and how does it change the way you build products?
Yeah, this actually is, I have a fascinating story about this because a couple months ago, we shipped our Google Calendar and Google Gmail integrations. We tried the same exact project a year ago in November, and it was a total failure. Like we couldn't get it to work reliably. The quality was not good. We couldn't figure out discoverability in the product. No one was using it, and then when we got people using it, it wasn't delivering good results, etc. And I made the difficult call at the time to say, hey, I think we should just table this. I know we put a lot of hard work into this, but it's just not working. And the time it's going to take us to get this to a level where we feel like we can ship it is not worth the effort. Fast forward now to this year, reasoning models came out, and then there were some model updates that made tool calling a lot better. And suddenly now having these integrations is so much easier. The reason why reasoning models really help is oftentimes when you're using the Gmail integration, for example, you may not have the right keyword. Like you're asking for, when am I flying out? And the thing to search for in Gmail is not flying out. It's like flight confirmation. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the model needs to take a few turns, like try a keyword. Oh, I couldn't find anything, try something else. This was not possible before reasoning models, right? So that one simple change actually made these integrations that did not work start working. And a big learning that we have, there's a really amazing essay called The Bitter Lesson. Particularly for a company like us at our scale of product market fit, it is not worth us fine-tuning a model and doing like tons and tons of quality work to get something to work. So the yardstick that we have usually is, if simple prompting isn't getting you to like a 70% quality level, then it usually means that either you need to change your approach drastically. That could also mean the models are not quite there yet. And we should, instead of like spinning our wheels trying to get it to work, it's often better to just wait, and switch approaches.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think like one of the things that I wanted to understand is, as we see the rate at which AI is developing and the new bundles, what they allow us to do, etc., do you change how you forecast also like what you can build, right? So let's say, this is a great example, 1 year ago you couldn't do this, but you could almost think about a situation where you say, let's build this for when these capabilities will arrive further in time, like almost like anticipating that they will arrive.
We actually haven't done that because I think this is different if you're working in a very large organization that's going to take a year to ship something. The longest that we've spent, obviously, off the top of my head, this is like a rough answer, but I don't think we spent more than a month or two tops, like before shipping something. And that time frame is not a meaningful enough time frame to forecast models changing. So we actually don't do a lot of forecasting and building for the future. A concrete example for this is computer use models, like these agentic workflows. That's, I think, a perfect example of demo aware to me. Like you see the stage demo and then, oh yeah, it made all these reservations for me, did this, and just ask around, like, is there anyone that is actually using computer use or like this agentic system to reliably get things done for them every day? No. Anyway, I can go into a lot of detail about why that's not the case. I'm sure it's going to get there someday, but currently it's not there. And that's why we haven't felt like it's a good investment for us to bring it into the product, because we don't, even though it demos really well and a lot of people are asking for it, we're not convinced that that actually delivers value to people in its current form. It might in a year, but building it now is not going to help us, I think. When it's ready, I think it's going to be relatively easy and quick for us to like integrate into the product.
Going back to how building product is changing. So you talked earlier about learning through shipping, which I think is super interesting. In the pre-AI world, I feel like a lot of the work we did was do, product discovery, reach out to users, do X number of interviews, get a really good idea of what the problem area looks like, bring that to light to, with the rest of the team, making sure everybody has the context, and then going to solutioning design and thinking about, how can we, like, what are the different ways we could solve for this, et cetera, et cetera. It sounds like, and maybe this is an assumption of mine, but it sounds like in this world, currently, you don't always know what good looks like. So you kind of have to ship something first to then figure out what actually good looks like. Is that true? Is this something you experience? And what does that look like, if you have an example?
Yeah, I think this is a particular problem for companies like us that are building general purpose AI assistants. If I worked at a legal AI company or like Figma's layer renaming feature, I think those were much more...
Very discrete problems.
They were discrete problems, and I think it was easier. It was a more like straight line to know like what problem are we solving for and what good looks like. But with a general purpose AI assistant, it's an empty text box. You could literally put anything in there. So it's often not even clear what are the use cases that are most meaningful. Like I think you could spend a ton of time doing a ton of customer discovery and like you could do a lot of upfront work to get to a good answer. But I've found that often you could take a best guess and ship it and then have people tell you through their usage in the product.
I think it's almost... this whole concept of placing bets kind of like really resonates here, because when you're placing a bet, you don't have all the facts, right? You're kind of you're betting that something is going to happen, which sounds like how you guys are operating today, which I think is really interesting. I want to talk about the browser, because I think it's super interesting. When we learned about the acquisition here at Atlassian, I was super excited, because the browser, when you think about it, is this place where most of the intent we have every day in our daily workflows materializes. Like, I'm trying to do something and I'm in the browser. I'm searching, I have my tasks there, I'm writing there, I'm doing research there, I'm communicating there. It's like this incredible surface area where a lot of our work starts and happens. And I love how Dia is really leaning into that, and how AI is, accelerating this shift as well. What does the browser become responsible for in an AI world that apps used to own, right? And how does that change how product teams should think about workflows? Because like we used to have this like app paradigm, like an app to do this and an app to do that. And now we're in a browser with this open text box.
I actually think there's two competing visions of the world. One vision of the world is you're going to do everything through the text box, and these apps are going to become irrelevant. The text box is going to use the app for you. You'll never have to see Workday again.
I'm sure a bunch of people love
that. The other version of the world is, no, these apps are still going to exist. The browser might make it easier for you to connect the dots between them and transport context between them, but they're not going to disappear. I think the view that we subscribe to is actually more the latter view. Like when you use Dia today, when you're setting up Dia, we ask you like, hey, what are the top apps that you use? Great, let's pin them. We're trying to make that like a good experience so that your messaging platform or your calendaring platform, your documents, like you can just have them all centrally. And I think the responsibility of the browser in that model is just holding all your context. This is, I'm sure, frequent pain point for you as well when you're trying to use AI. Like, you're trying to use AI in your task management tool, and the context that you need is actually in Slack or in an email. Especially for product managers, I feel like context is all over the place.
Yeah.
And constantly updating and changing and refreshing. One thing that I found trying to integrate more AI into my day-to-day workflow is, I think the biggest pain point actually is context. It's not writing the prompt. It's like bringing in all the relevant context. And sometimes it feels like all of the work to find all the relevant context and pick it feels more trouble than it's worth. So then I end up just doing things manually. I think the big opportunity for the browser actually as being the place where you do all of this work, knowing all of your projects and the people that you work with, what's important to you, just by passively observing what you do in the browser and holding all of that context so that the friction for you to then ask AI to do something for you is like much, much less.
Have you changed, like as a product manager, how you bring that context into like all of the different AI tools that you use?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually excited to demo how some of that happens today. Interesting thing actually about when we shipped Dia, we thought the main value prop of Dia was the router that we built for the command bar. So, there's a lot of AI browsers on the market now. For most of them, when you type a query, they just take you to that system's assistant. For every query that you type, it just goes to the assistant because, an AI company is shipping this browser and they want you to use their AI assistant. When we were building Dia, we realized, well, actually, no, there's some queries that are just navigational and you do want to go to a search engine and then navigate to a site. And it's adding needless friction to take you to an AI assistant for these queries. So we built a router that based on what you type, it infers where you want to go and like take you to the correct spot. When we started working on Dia, like in September of last year, we thought the core value prop of the app was the ability to access like an AI assistant from the command bar. Because like when you use a browser, you probably don't notice, but all day, every day, you're opening a new tab on Command T and typing something and pressing enter, just all day, every day.
Yeah.
And right now, like before these AI browsers, if you wanted to get the AI answer, you needed to like navigate to the assistant's website like ChatGPT and type your query there. Additional friction. So we thought, and we built a router in Dia based on what you type into the command bar. We either take you to a search engine or we take you to an AI assistant. Unlike all of the other AI browsers that only take you, by default, take you to their assistant, we realized it's sometimes better to take you to a search engine. But anyway, we thought that was going to be the core value prop. But then we shipped Dia to a set of early users. And then when we asked them after a month, like what is resonating, what's really bringing value, it turns out it was actually not that. It was a feature that we at the time called Ask on Page, which is like the AI sidebar, which is being able to ask questions or
based on the content of the page.
Yeah, based on the content of the page. Another thing that we built is being able to mention different tabs. So you can bring in multiple pages into the context and ask a question about that. So that's actually, it turns out that is the key value of having an AI browser. It's not necessarily having, less friction to run these simple question answer queries with AI. It's being able to like bring in your context.
And I guess another really good example of you learn through shipping, because like you had to put out this amazing router first out there and people to experience it and all the downstream workflows, and then realize that actually people are finding a lot more value from the AI side.
Yeah, for sure. And this router, I told you earlier on, our team had like this very maximalist vision about it. And then when I came in, I was like, well, can we just have it decide whether it's search engine or assistant and just like cut out everything else? And that actually unblocked us to ship because it was such a simple decision that we could train a local model and decide instantly. So when you come to the end, type something, we tell you in real time whether it's going to go to...
Because it's happening on the machine.
Yeah, Google or our assistant. But yeah, if we hadn't shipped it, we would have probably iterated more and more on the router, thinking that was the core value prop of the product, and it would have been not the best use of our time. But because we shipped a simple version of it, we were then able to see, oh, actually, what's creating value for people is this other thing. So let's invest more here.
Before we go to the demo segment, what is one piece of advice you would give to product managers listening about building products for the AI era? And Dia is a specific use case because the product is very AI-centric in itself. But some of the products out there today are not necessarily using AI in like opportunities, let's say. What would you tell them?
I'm going to give another
boring
same answer. Yeah. The advice I would make is do the boring thing. because oftentimes the shiny thing, when you try to build the shiny thing, everyone is building the same shiny thing. Like, have you noticed every product you use has an app builder in it now? And some will be successful and valuable and some won't be. But then every app that you use has some friction point that AI could make better. A really good example is like, the task management tool that we use has an integration in Slack. You can just right click on a message and say, create a new task. And it ingests the text of the task, uses an LLM to turn it into a title format that's more like a, story format.
Yeah.
I find that very valuable and delightful use of AI. Did it build an app for me? Will it demo on stage? Not really, but it's something that I have to use multiple times a day. It solved a real pain point for me. Yeah. And like, it is a boring implementation of AI, but I think it's highly valuable. So I would encourage folks to think about what are things that you can reliably do that really solve a problem, even if they're boring, because people are going to appreciate them more than a shiny stage demo that they're actually not going to use.
Brilliant. Thank you. Can you give us a quick intro into what you're going to show us today in this demo?
Oh, cool. Okay. I prepared for this last Sunday and I was trying to put together all of the different AI workflows I use in Dia as a product manager. There's so many, but thanks to you now, I'll probably be able to record a Loom and like publish it. But I'm going to show you 3 things that I think are going to be like pretty relevant to a lot of folks that are listening. First thing that I'm going to show is how to simulate your manager with AI. And this is actually like really, really easy to do in Dia, especially if your manager is a sort of person that writes a lot. The second thing that I'm going to demo is, again, something that happens to a lot of PMs, which is, you write a proposal, a strategy, some sort of document, and then you go into a review and people give you a bunch of feedback. And then now you have to like make another revision on this document. I have a workflow that does most of this for you, where you bring in the document and the meeting transcript and we just do it. And then the third one is crazy workflow, but I'm excited to share that with you as well, which is actually every morning when I open my laptop, I ask Dia, what do you think I should work on today? And the workflow, based on all the context it has about me in memory, our strategy documents, what my collaborators are sending me in Slack, actually gives me recommendations on what seem like the highest pressing things to focus on.
Brilliant. Excited.
Cool.
All right, let's dive in. So welcome back, and let's talk about the demo segment of today's Product in Practice.
Okay, cool. This first one I call the Josh skill. Josh Miller is my boss at the browser company. He's our CEO. A lot of my role involves creating like product pitches and strategies, and I send it out to get feedback. Something I realized that AI is really good for is actually simulating a person's perspective. Like, you can go to AI and be like, hey, imagine you're like Winston Churchill. Like, what would you say? You can actually do this for people that are alive as well. And a lot of AI PM influencers actually will teach you how to do this, but it's just a lot of work because you have to like export all these documents and then create a ChatGPT project. It's just like a lot of manual setup. It's actually really, really easy to do in Dia. All I did in Dia is I actually bookmarked a lot of the things Josh has written, and you probably don't need this many. Maybe like even 5 is enough.
Okay.
Something that you can do in Dia that is really handy is you can mention and bring in the context from an entire bookmark folder really, really quickly. So this is what my Josh simulator skill looks like. And what I did was, let's just set this up from scratch. I wrote a prompt. I was saying, you're Josh Miller, you're my manager, fully embodies perspective and style of thinking. Don't over-index on the content, just the perspective. Read these attached documents and then give me feedback. It's as easy as that. And then I say at all bookmarks in Josh, and that's going to attach all of these bookmarks here. Cool. So we have the skill now. Let me just run it. It's going to take a moment because it's going to read all those documents, and it's going to read the thing that I wrote and then give me some feedback. So
Brilliant.
Let's see what we get. Cool. And the interesting thing is, oftentimes this does mirror the feedback that I would get from Josh.
So you've stress tested.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes he's always bringing me back to first principles. Like, okay, like what is the core idea here? Like, what is the one thing? Can we focus even more? Yeah, and then I get this like bullet list of like, these things resonate. Hey, pick a point of view, cut scope, like pick some hero use cases. I find this very, very helpful. And you can actually do this with, there's another version of this that you can build, which is not based on documents, but based on meeting transcripts. If you meet, like, for example, if you work with a manager that doesn't write, but they speak a lot of meetings, I'm going to demo this in the next one, but DA is able to actually read your calendar and bring in meeting transcripts as well. So you could also do it that way.
Brilliant. When you first started this, how did you go about writing the prompt? Because like there's this thing with prompting where when people are demoing something, they are most of the time demoing the latest state of the prompt they're using. But like, did this work straight away the first time you wrote this, or did you have to iterate through the prompting?
Yeah. Well, actually, let's try this live. If I recall correctly, the first version of this prompt was something like, pretend you're Josh Miller, my manager and CEO of BCNY, read the attached documents to embody his perspective and give me feedback. So it's a much simpler version of this prompt, and I can say all bookmarks in Josh. If I recall correctly, the reason why my latest prompt says don't over-index on the content, just think about the thinking style, is written this way. It would pull, because a lot of this thinking, this is actually a great example. A lot of this writing actually contains Josh's product pitches from like a year ago.
Right.
So if I don't say embody the thinking style, not the content, it actually will try to match my proposal to Josh's product pitches from a year ago. So like custom skills was, for example, like a project that we worked on like last summer. It is no longer the top priority that we're working on now, but unless I tell AI don't over-index on the content, it's going to tell me to like map my project to custom skills. The other thing is the latest prompt says, hey, give me some succinct feedback. If I don't, then I get like a ton here. I think this is like personal preference. Some people want longer responses. Some people want shorter. But yeah, the key thing to change here was don't over-index on the content, but just embody the thinking style and like the higher level.
That makes sense. So this is a really great example, I think, of something a lot of product managers can use in their day-to-day. You had two more use cases you wanted to share with us.
Yes. So this one gives you feedback on a document based on past things that your manager may have written by embodying the It's basically predicting and simulating. But then you could actually also do this with real feedback that they've given you. So here I have a draft of a job description that I wrote for a role that I want to hire. And, I sent this to Josh, and then we actually had a meeting where we talked through this role and this job description. In the before times, I would take copious notes during the meeting, and I will try to remember like what exactly came up and what do people want changed, and then apply those changes to the document. But then I can ask Dia, what should I change here given Josh's feedback and then I'll just mention this tab that has the transcript.
So it's fetching the transcript from a Zoom recording in a different tab. It's looking at the transcript and it's bringing it into this context and evaluating what you just shared in the job description.
Yes, yeah. Some formatting issue, but let's try one other thing. Format as a bullet list organized in sections and give a TLDR. This is something I do a lot as well, by the way, just
iterating on.
Yeah, people do different things. Some people give a follow-up. I like just clicking edit and like trying over. Okay, cool. So here's actually like a really succinct TLDR of the feedback that I got based on what I need to change. And it's cool because I'm getting specific things that I can like copy paste and put in my job description now. Like for these like responsibilities section, now I have a new bullet for competing head to head with some other enterprise browsers, etc. Yeah, I like this one a lot. I use this all the time, not only for concrete docs like this, but being able to synthesize action items, I think is also kind of a similar use case. And a lot of AI note-taking tools will give you action items, but they often don't come in the format that you want, or you actually have some like human written notes in one place and the AI notes in the other place. And sometimes they don't match, or like you want to combine both. So Dia does that really, really well as well, where it can be.
I really love how Granola does this as well.
Yeah. But one thing Granola doesn't have is Granola has your notes, your human notes, and Granola's AI notes, but oftentimes you're in a meeting and someone else is taking notes, right? And there's no easy way to bring those into
Right,
Granola.
it's like collaborating across multiple surfaces around transcribing and note-taking.
Yep. And in Dia, you can just like @mention the notes and then @mention the transcript and like bring them all in.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You had a third thing I believe you wanted to show us today.
Yes. The third thing is, let me actually first tell you where I got this idea from.
Yeah, please.
When we, to preface this, we have a feature called memory in Dia. But this is different than the memory that you get in ChatGPT and other AI assistants. The memory that they have is only the things that you've told them. And like the requests that you made and the files you upload. Dia actually builds a memory for you based on what you do things in the browser, like very passively. It will just like learn about you. We shipped this last summer, and immediately after we shipped this, people started making really, really cool skills in Dia. One popular skill that people use a lot is this daily wrap skill, which basically using search memory, it gives you a summary of what you worked on and then suggests some things to do. This was, I think, the most popular like memory skill that people use. And let's see what I get. This is like a simple version of this. And I'm hoping, let's actually say, hoping there isn't anything super confidential in here, but okay, cool. This actually is like pretty decent. It told me the things that I did and then some action items I have for today. But I thought, like, what if I took this to the extreme in terms of suggesting the things I should work on? Because this skill, all of the context that it's using to generate these suggestions is your past 7 days of browser history. But oftentimes you might have, you're probably not opening your company strategy every week. They're like things that should like really inform the way you spend time at work. So I made a version of this that's much more involved. As you can see, it's like this very, very long, massive prompt. But the first one actually is the same as the other skill. Like, hey, like search memory, see like where I spent time, then identify like these notable things that I did. But for suggested priorities, I said, actually read our company priorities. And I attached these strategy documents that we wrote like several months ago. I said, read meeting transcripts, because sometimes someone will tell me something in a meeting transcript like, hey, Cemre, you should do it. And I'll say like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then I'll forget. And I might not open this transcript and have it in my memory, but our Google Calendar integration can actually go look at all your meetings and read the transcripts and identify action items assigned to you. The other thing that I added here is if anyone has asked me to do something in Slack, we also search your Slack. And based on these, suggest some things for me to do. So I'm a top performer at work. This, I think I added because I was getting suggestions, but they were not ordered by impact. So I gave some recommendations for like, hey, prioritize things, from my manager and blah, blah, blah.
What I love about this is it's very pragmatic. Like, these are all things we would love to do and are trying to do every day.
Yeah.
And it's incredible to see how you can bring this in the browser and make the browser help you do a better job.
Yeah, and you could technically do all of this stuff in another AI assistant or another tool.
We are creatures of habit.
Yeah, we're creatures of habit. And then the magic of Dia is if you create a skill, it's literally on your new tab page and you can just like click it, and this is going to take some time to run because it reads a lot of context and looks at your calendar. But yeah, it's going to suggest some things for me to do. I actually built this up over time. Like when I first created this, we didn't have Google Calendar and we didn't have Slack. So I just had like a longer version of the Slack memory
Right.
prompt. And as we ship more and more integrations, I'm like, oh, great. All of these integrations have context that I can use. So I expand this prompt. And I'm sure if we add another integration for like some task management tool or something else, I would grow this prompt to be even more. By the way, for folks that are watching, the reason why Dia is not set as my default browser is I test and install Dia every day, and I need to go through this flow. So that's the reason why this banner is here. So I'm simulating that experience, but Dia is my default browser. Cool. Yeah, I have a different version of this. That actually, maybe a little more detailed than the daily wrap. One other thing that I added, by the way, is, sorry that these are redacted, but these are links that I need to visit to actually complete this task.
Right.
So oftentimes, if it says like act on dashboard insights, like this takes me to the dashboard, or it says like lock the readiness plan.
Just
like
makes it more actionable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I can just like make it one click.
That's brilliant. How have you seen? Because obviously, like it sounds quite obvious how this can help you in your day to day. But now that you've been using these tools, like how would you judge the like productivity gains it gave you? And like productivity is like one bucket of enhancement for me. And then there's also like, how has it transformed how you work? Like, because a lot of the AI tools are about incremental productivity gains, like very small gains here and there. But some more advanced usage actually shows that you used to do something a specific way. Now you've completely changed how you do this thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've only shown you like 10% of these like skills and workflows that I've created in Dia. But I'll tell you this, there's no other way I could be the one product lead for a company with 100 people and like not lose my mind. I found that the world that we're moving towards, I think we're going to need a lot fewer product managers, because something that I'm finding, especially when I was at Instagram, like, 5-6 years ago, in hindsight now, we were doing so much manual reporting work that is now very easy to automate to LLMs. Like I had my teams tracking spreadsheet and I was like, taking things from there and putting it in my org, and then we were doing cross-org collaborations. So this other thing needed. I was spending so much of my time manually updating spreadsheets.
Yeah, and there's a lot of coordination also.
Yeah, I don't do any of that anymore.
Yeah.
I have another one that I haven't shared, but as a startup, a lot of context lives in Slack, and we don't keep our documentation up to date. So I have another one of these that actually looks at Slack to see if there's anything new on a project that should update the tracker that I have, etc. So a lot of that reporting or this workflow that I showed you about getting feedback on something that you wrote, that's much faster. I'll tell you something funny though. I find that I do my most productive AI work when I need to share something in a meeting and I have like 8 minutes before the meeting.
So you're under pressure.
Yes. Yeah.
Like this is where it shines.
Yeah, for sure. In the previous world, I would kind of come to the meeting and say, hey, sorry, I haven't had time. Let's workshop this together.
Yeah.
But push come to shove, I feel like it's, I think, a great motivator to use more AI.
It's almost like a superpower.
For sure, yeah. But also, I find that ultimately we're trying to change our habits. And even though something might take you much longer to do manually, if that's something that you're used to, your brain automatically will move you to this habit. But what I found is just a necessity of my role of being the one product person. There's just like so much to do and no conceivable way I could do a good job if I continued to do this by hand. So just by necessity, I'm using more and more AI in my day-to-day.
Brilliant. I love this. If we had time for one more thing, what would you show us?
I'm going to share. Okay, this is a little crazy.
We love crazy things.
Well, okay, and this is not something that you would run every day necessarily. But again, when we had all these integrations, I was like, well, I have my Slack, I have my meetings, I have my emails. Like, what could I do? I created. I don't want to disrespect coaches by saying this is a coach skill or that this does coaching in any meaningful way, but it's somewhat similar, which is...
if you find value in it.
Yes, yeah. This is... I created a skill that lets me reflect on how I show up. This is a very crazy skill. It reads all the meeting transcripts from past weeks and analyzes the things I said in meetings.
Okay.
Then it looks at the emails that I sent.
Okay.
Then it looks at the Slack messages that I've sent. And based on those, it gives me feedback on how I'm showing up at work and my communication style.
Wow.
Yeah. This is actually like eerily on point. This is going to take a long time because
It has to go through a lot of information.
Yeah. But I feel like this is a case where it really shines to have an AI browser that you can bring in a lot of like context to.
Yeah, across multiple apps and context libraries and modalities. And it's just like, it's doing all of this. If you had to do this manually, it'd be like...
it's impossible.
Yeah.
The other thing is also the difference between the integrations we have in Dia and the way other AI assistants do it. Because we are your browser, we can actually talk to your Gmail and Google Calendar and your Slack on your behalf. We don't need you to go through some like authorization flow and get your like, there's a lot of these cool AI workflows I'm not able to do because, then I need to like talk to our like admin to get it turned on, et cetera. There's like a lot of friction to get those in. And I need to repeat that every time there's like a new integration. But yeah, Dia has access to everything that you see in the browser. So we're able to do these queries for you. So as you can see, this is like quite wild. By the way, this red 5 links thing here, this didn't used to exist. Like the ability to like fetch web pages on your behalf is something that we've had in the browser, but we didn't show it to you. I vibe coded this a couple months ago.
Oh, wow.
Because it really bothered me that...
so it's like showing progress and giving you transparency, visibility on like what's happening.
Because I mean, this it takes time to go fetch and read those web pages.
Helps you deal with the time.
Yep. So it's something I vibe coded. Another thing I vibe coded that actually just shipped yesterday is one benefit of having memory in Dia. You can,
And what's the process? You vibe code something. Are you doing this in Cursor?
I'm actually trying all sorts of different tools. I used to use Cursor, then I used Cloud Code. I think this one was Cloud Code, and then this newer memory one that I did was in GPT Codex.
And then how do you you raise a pull request, an engineer reviews it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it goes through like the quality.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I'll say the majority of vibe code pull requests I sent, the engineers look at it and they're like, no. But that's fine. I mean, that's something I accept.
You're trying.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll show that later one.
I mean, it's super interesting that you have 2 examples that went to production and we're experiencing them right now.
Yeah. Well, the other one, just to show you really quickly, is when I was digging through the data, we have this tab overflow menu that I don't personally use, but I noticed that a lot of our users actually click and open it. I was like, well, maybe this could be an entry point. And so I added this like shortcut so you can like search things in your memory from here. But anyway, coming back to this skill.
Yeah. So it looked through all of your communication channels and how you communicate, and now it's coaching you on how you could be a better communicator.
It read the transcripts from 10 meetings, 3 emails, because we don't use a lot of email, and 50 Slack messages. And, as LLMs do, it's buttering me up a little bit and saying, it's high signal and blah, blah, blah. But let's see, where effectiveness tips is fragmented multi-thread execution, rapid short messages that leave owners uncertain about who, when, how. Yeah, that's actually like very, very insightful. So let's see. Yeah, this is amazing. Like things to improve upon. You request changes without an owner, due date, or success definition. For example, you sent this Slack message and said something should happen without assigning a DRI. You should do this. So instead of say, do this one. Consolidate things into one summary post. Here's an example.
Did you define the format in which you wanted the feedback?
Oh, yeah. Let's actually look at this. I said, again, this is like the culmination of like a lot of iteration on this prompt. But yeah, I said, tell me things to improve upon and good habits to repeat. Make a table containing diagnosis, example, what to improve instead of try. But if I recall correctly, actually, I did not have this at all. And I got roughly this structure. I was like, I like this. I want to keep it. One thing that happens a lot with AI, because it's non-deterministic, you're not if you are not specific about the format, you're going to get a different format every time. So when I get a format that I like, I basically just copy paste it and say like, hey, do more of this. And and then some good habits to
do more of.
But yeah, I find this really cool. I have another one Okay, I'll show one more because I think this is kind of funny. This is completely unscientific, but this reads meeting transcripts and then tries to guess your and your collaborator's personality type based on what they said in meetings, and then
Wow,
gives
this
you
could
advice.
be very dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's stop this and then change all the names.
Yeah, we don't want to having problems here.
Yeah. I mean, I posted this and, you know, it was maybe like 70% correct. So this is definitely like more for entertainment value than real use. But one thing that's tangibly changed in how I work is when I was doing in person at Instagram in 2019, we did not record any meetings at all.
Right.
Many meetings were not even video conference meetings. So even though I like the in-person vibe, one advantage of having shifted to more remote work is now we can get transcripts of every meeting.
Yeah.
And meetings have so much valuable information in them.
Correct.
And because of how the systems that record your meetings don't quite talk to each other, it's difficult to get that context in your workflow.
Right.
Like with Zoom, for example, all of them, you have to enter a password, etc. So one day we might have a good integration for that as well.
Yeah.
But because we have that integration now, it's just made it just drastically easier to just bring in all of that context and do work for me.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so this is me, but yeah, it's funny. Like we talked about shipping to learn.
Yeah.
I just said that in a meeting like earlier today, so
Right.
it's telling me. So this is someone I don't know who this is, but it says, hey, their predicted enneagram is. Let's actually talk about this one. This person has a different enneagram, so hey, these people respond to this, so be more structured. Invite them to do blah.
This is going to be really interesting also in helping you interact with your colleagues as well.
Yeah, for sure. The thing that inspired me to do this is I was at a PM offsite back in 2018, and then we had a facilitator come in and have us do this activity where all of us got a color that like represented our work style, and then we got advice about how to work well together. So I remembered that, and I was like, oh, there's so much signal in what people actually say in meetings and in Slack. So that inspired me to create this. Obviously, totally not scientific, more for entertainment, disclaimer, but I found this a fun use case.
I love that. One of my favorite questions on this show, which is something I borrowed from a BBC show called Desert Island Discs.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Is, you got to bear with me here. So imagine you're stranded on a desert island, right? And I grant you two things. The first one is you can bring one book. What book would that be? And then the second thing is I can grant you an endless supply of one specific dish that you would eat for the rest of time. What would that dish be and why?
Oh.
We can start with a book.
Yeah, sure. This is a book that I actually reread every year because it just resonates with a thinking pattern that I have that is unproductive, and I notice that is causing some unnecessary unhappiness in my life.
There's a lot of self-awareness there for sure, which is great.
Yeah, it's called 4,000 Weeks. The author is Oliver Berkman, and it's a really poignant reflection on like the finitude of life. But as opposed to stressing about how life is finite and you have to use your time, it encourages you to just like relax into it because it's going to happen anyway. So if I was stranded on an island, I think I would need that perspective quite a bit. The dish that I could have, this is something I eat actually every day. It's me, my husband, and our dogs all like eating this, which is a plain Greek yogurt, plain full-fat Greek yogurt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the cool thing with being on this desert island is that you can assume there's a bunch of things available there. Maybe, you can complement this yogurt with fruit or...
Oh, yeah,
other
totally.
stuff,
I love yogurt because you can have it for basically every... this is probably like my Turkishness speaking, but you can have it with every meal.
Yeah.
You can make it a dessert.
Could be sweet, could be savory.
It could be sweet, it could be savory. Greek yogurt is like, it has good nutritional content. Like, I'm a big yogurt guy.
I love it. All right. Cemre, thank you so much. I feel like we have had an episode that was absolutely packed with insights and really practical examples of how product managers can change how they build products and how they can learn By shipping. This was dense with practice. And for everyone listening, pick one behavior or example from this conversation and test it in your team this week. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe and catch the next episode of Product in Practice, where we explore how AI is changing the craft of product management. I'm Axel Surya. See you in the next episode of Product in Practice. If this episode helps you think differently about AI in your workflow, share it with a fellow product manager and leave a quick rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps. You'll also find the resources at atlassian.com/Axel. That's AXEL.